Hey there, Steve Bentley here from Bentley Coaching, and I just wanted to go over a couple things that I've been talking to increasingly more and more people about lately, and that's being fat adapted versus losing fat or burning fat. I think a lot of times people think too much about, okay, I'm trying to do this diet, I'm trying to lose fat, whether it's because they're trying to lean out, drop excess weight, or get better at accessing energy in their body so that they can become a better, more proficient endurance athlete. Regardless, I think sometimes people get hung up on the fact that they're trying to lose a certain number. And I think if they can do things properly that are going to get them into the right state, i.e. being more fat adapted so that they're just constantly in this fat burning state or almost constantly in this fat burning state, the result of losing the excess fat is going to take care of itself. But even better, they're going to be able to access that fat for energy. So really, what is the problem? I think the problem for a lot of times people have, they're heavier than they want to be, and they've got this layer of fat in their system, whether it's just superficial or in around their organs, wherever. Different times people carry it at different areas depending on where they're at in their life cycle, or man versus woman. Different people have different sort of body shapes. Regardless, they're not happy with how things are rolling along, and they may be exercising a lot. I know as a triathlon coach for almost 30 years now, there's a lot of times people who are really fit, they're in great shape, but they don't have the body fat percentage that they'd like. So they're over fat, I guess you could call it that. And they want to lean out. And I think sometimes they focus too much on the number on the scale rather than getting their body into a proper state. And I think a lot of times people are just not burning fat for energy, and they're putting themselves into the state where they're mainly in a fat storing state. And we'll talk a little bit about insulin and how that affects that, and where people are more carb focused, that's going to crank up their insulin. And I think for a lot of times, people are just getting their body into this wrong state, and it's not contributing to what the result that they want. They could be exercising all they want, they could be lowering their caloric intake, so focusing on that calories in versus calories out equation, it doesn't work. If it did, everybody that watched what they ate and exercise would be skinny, and everybody that overate and didn't exercise would be overweight, and that's not the case. So we know it's not a calories in, calories out thing. There's a component to that, but that's not it completely. And so I think a lot of times, especially with endurance athletes, that's kind of my background, they are hooked on carbohydrates, and it's so much fun to actually get people moving away from that. Now, like Michelle and I are just heading off to Colorado tomorrow for a couple weeks, and she just finished a 4-hour, 80-mile ride where she cranked out 20 miles an hour on this ride, and she's doing a fasting day today. No carbs whatsoever, didn't eat anything during the ride. All she had was water and some electrolytes, base salt, I think. It's like pink Himalayan sea salt. That's all she had during this 4-hour ride, and she's just grinding along. She's so fat adapted because we did things that are gonna get her focusing on that. She is 129 pounds right now. It's the lightest she's ever been. She was ready for Ironman 2.5 months ago in terms of her body composition and where she needed to be. But she's just so fat adapted. Her body is just so good at accessing fat for energy. And if you can get to that, and she's 5'8", so 129 pounds at 5'8", she is going to rock because she is so strong right now. So her strength to weight ratio through the roof. She's been able to reduce the amount of energy that she needs during an Ironman by 6 times, 600%. She's going like 50 calories an hour instead of almost 300 now, because she's moved away from accessing carbs for fuel and getting it into accessing her own body fat. So that's a really important consideration that people want to do. And whether you're an endurance athlete or not, you can take some of these key principles that we've figured out work so well and incorporate them into your own eating strategy, and that's going to help you get more fat adapted so that you're just constantly in this fat burning state. Okay, so it works great for athletes, but even if you're not an athlete, that's okay. You're going to be able to access fat for fuel, which is really what you want. I know you want the scale to go down, but when you're accessing fat for fuel in just an ongoing basis, great things are going to happen. So what is the solution? So the solution for me, getting into this fat adapted state more often, how can you do that? Understand that carbohydrates aren't the enemy, but they do have an impact on how your system is going to function. So I've been coaching thousands of people through a low carb, you can call it a keto program. I don't like to call it a keto program because keto to me isn't healthy. No nutrition in it, too much focus on unhealthy macronutrients. So I'm really focused on good quality macronutrients, so good quality, highly bioavailable protein, micronutrient support through supplements and powders, They're all whole food based. They have to be if they're going to be functioning effectively in your system. Cellular cleansing technology, because we want to free those fat cells up from holding on to impurities so we can better access that fat for energy. And then also high-end, really effective coaching to make sure that you know exactly what to do. So that's been working amazing for people. So when you do want to have carbs, because carbs aren't the enemy, it's just having the right carbs at the right time. If you're trying to get fat adapted, you have to kind of overcompensate for the fact that you're not at all initially. So let's assume you're carb focused. You really got to do a good number on yourself. And that's where keto, like a healthy keto program, I coach a group called Net Fuel, which is we get people into ketosis, but we really support their health through micronutrient support and proper macronutrient focus. So I can talk to you about that if you're interested in that later. But really what you want to do is get people into a state, or if it's you, get yourself into a state where you're really focusing on getting the right carbs in at the right time. So what's that mean? More complex carbohydrates. Stay away from bread, rice, potatoes, and pasta, right? Just, you don't need that if you're trying to get fat adapted. All it's going to do is pull you back from being fat adapted and put you into a fat storing state. You don't want that. You want to get your body into a fat burning state almost all the time through the day. So a couple things that you can do. Have more complex carbohydrates, so like the top 10, I don't think I'm going to be able to hit all 10, but I'll try, like mushrooms, zucchini, kale, spinach, green beans, broccoli, cauliflower, avocado is a great one. There's 2 more, and asparagus is one, and I can't remember what the 10th one is. But that kind of vegetable, have a lot of those through the day. Have your healthy fats. Those are so important. If you restrict your calories and you restrict your healthy fats, your body's going to hold on to all the fat that you've got. So this is where components of the keto program work really well. We don't want to restrict your fat because then your body's not going to burn it. We want to make sure that you're lowering your carbs, so you have to go into that fat burning state for energy. But we also want to give your body that fat so that it feels good about burning fat. And the other component of that I mentioned is good quality focus on the right caloric intake. And I think so many times people eat too little to be able to get effectively in that state where they're going to burn fat and lose weight. If your body's not getting enough calories in, it is going to hold on to everything that you've got. No matter how low you get your carbs, no matter how high you get your fats, if your caloric total is too low based on your activity level and your goal ideal lean body weight, you're not going to be effective or successful. So those are really important. And when you get your carbs in and around exercise, that's a really good time of day to bring in your carbohydrates. So if you're going to be exercising early, eat more of your carbs early in the day. If you're going to be exercising later, eat more of your carbs later in the day, in and around your exercise. So either right before, during, or right after your exercise. You're going to have a less of an insulin response when you do that, and you're going to be able to utilize more of those carbs that you're bringing in to get stored as glycogen, and less is going to go to stored as body fat. And that's so important if you're trying to get yourself into a fat burning state. The third thing that I like to have people think about when they're bringing their carbs in is don't bring them in all on their own. Have them with protein and fat. It's going to dampen the effect that those sugars are going to have coming into your system, and that's so important in order to make sure that you're staying in that fat burning state. Insulin levels are so important to manage. Carbs are going to crank them up more than anything for sure, but you're still going to have an insulin response anytime you eat. So you want to keep that in mind. Keep in mind that you want to have your carbs with protein and fat, and ideally as much as possible in and around exercise. Keep those healthy fats coming in, that's really important. And then the other thing that's really good is to have your carbs coming in or any of your calories actually, in a smaller window through the day. So we call it intermittent fasting. Really powerful and effective. If you can shorten up or tighten the time frame that you're actually eating your carbohydrates, that's really effective. When it comes to exercise, you don't always have to have a meal or a shake or whatever right after exercise. If it's a really hard, intense workout and you're trying to recover from that, that's a good time to have a replacement shake, for example. I use a product called Isagenix, and it works amazing, and I've been using that for 12 years. That's what I recommend to people because the whole complete line is so healthy and clean and effective. But for people that aren't doing a super hard workout, you don't need to eat right afterwards. You're putting your body into this fat burning state, especially if you're going aerobic enough. Don't stop that process by having something to eat right afterwards. Just let it go, right? Like, you don't have to eat after every workout. If it's a really hard, intense workout and you want that recovery, awesome, have a recovery shake. If not, You don't have to eat right away. So if you're exercising first thing in the morning, awesome. Do that exercise. You still don't need to eat until later in the morning if you're going to tighten up that window to between, say, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Most people are eating for 16 hours a day and not eating for 8 while they're asleep. Flip that. Just eat for 8 hours during the day and not eat for 16. You're going to be better fat adapted. You're going to have better insulin levels and sensitivity, and you think better things are going to happen. I like cellular cleansing. I mentioned that earlier. That's really good to get toxins out of your fat cells, especially those visceral fat areas around your organs. If you can do that, you're going to be much more available, or the fat's going to be more available to access for energy. And then good optimal nutritional support is so important to keep your body recovering properly from workouts so that you can get more out of the workouts that you're doing. I've always said to folks, training is awesome. I can give some great training programs. My athletes have won world championships before and qualified dozens of people to Ironman Hawaii. It doesn't matter how well you train. What matters is how well you recover. And it's those building blocks of the food that you're getting in. And unfortunately today, so many people think they eat healthy, but really all they're doing is just avoiding crap. They're not eating the trans fats or the GMOs or the dyes or the chemicals or the preservatives or the artificial sweeteners, things like that. They're kind of avoiding those, but the food that they are bringing in, although it's clean, it's not nutritious. It's not very bioavailable in their system. So we want to make sure that we're getting good quality nutrition and building blocks into people and getting them in at the right time in and around their activity and in relation to when they're going to sleep at night as well. And that's where that intermittent fasting comes in handy. So a couple of tips there. If you can get more fat adapted and focus more on that rather than losing weight, great things are going to happen in terms of how you access fat for energy. The inches are going to come off, the inflammation is going to dissipate and get rid of or come off your system, and you're going to start to lean out and get a lot faster and stronger because you're doing the right things to support your system and recover from those activities. So anyways, if you like the information, click subscribe, like the video. That'll get you some of the other stuff that I'm going to be popping up, and I love to stay in touch and keep the information flowing. So hopefully this was useful information. If you have any questions or comments, reach out. Happy to help clarify the info and help you take your performance and your body composition to the next level. Have a great day. Bye.